We're going to learn how Ohio's biggest companies are harnessing innovation to stay competitive and build the future. This session explores how enterprise tech teams are applying AI, data science, and research and development to transform consumer experiences. And simply put, these companies are putting Ohio on the map. So join me in a big round of applause for our moderator, Todd James, who is the founder and CEO at Aurora Insights, and our panel.
Well, thank you for that intro today. And I didn't have a bunch of pink outfits laid out, but apparently I could have. So as Tanya indicated, I'm Todd James. I am really thrilled to be a moderator with such a great panel today. As Tanya mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Aurora Insights, but very recently, before I left Kroger, I was running AI R&D for them, and I was Chief Data and Analytics Officer for their analytics company, 8451. So BigCo, have a passion. These are the companies up here. We have 3 great companies in Goodyear, Veeva, and Cardinal Health that are moving the needle and having a big impact on the innovation scene in the state of Ohio. So with that said, let's start with just some introductions.
All right, shall I start?
We'll start.
Right,
We'll go that way.
We'll go this way. All right. Well, thank you. And it's so great to be here today. Really looking forward to the discussion. I'm Erin Spring. I lead material science at Goodyear. We're responsible for pretty much any materials that go into tires. So hopefully the majority of you got here very safely today on your Goodyear tires. Or you need to go shopping, but we can talk about that later. I always like to give a little bit of a plug, but I really lead our research and development organization based up in Akron. I've been at Goodyear for over 20 years, and I like to say I've kind of had almost 2 very different careers. One now in our material science organization, but also for about 10 years, I led and built our venture team that was very much focused on building solutions a bit outside of tires, especially around different software solutions, and also making sure we were connecting in with the latest technologies through interacting with a lot of startups, as well as launching our own corporate venture capital practice. So a lot of things now where those 2 roles come together as you start really, I like the conversation earlier today, where really classical tech really intersects almost with anything that you do today, even in the hard tech space of materials.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Anagha, Vyas. So I head the Artificial Intelligence Center of Excellence for Cardinal Health. We are one of the primary distributors of medical products and pharmaceutical drugs, Fortune 14 company. My team focuses on it has 3 key responsibilities: AI strategy, AI governance, and then building and delivering AI assets. I am local to Dublin, Ohio, and I'm harboring a rising junior Buckeye, so I'm supposed to bleed scarlet and gray, and I'm still getting there. My favorite part about coming to OSU is actually seeing some of those tiny food robots that go around. That is by far the best draw for OSU. And I think as my son was getting in, I was really happy that I would actually get to experience some of those robots, because for me, that's like that perfect culmination of AI and actual, democratized use of it that is, people can benefit from it in a really small scale. So really happy to be here.
Good. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Pinal Patel. I'm the CIO of Veeva. We are an industry cloud software company focused on servicing our life sciences industries. Basically, we have a suite of products that life sciences industry use our applications from initial drug manufacturing all the way to the commercial. I live in Columbus. I'm a fellow alma mater of Ohio State University. So I went to Ohio State University a long time ago when this building was not this great. I mean, Ohio Union 25 years ago was not the Ohio Union now. So, but thrilled to be here and really looking forward to this good conversation.
Well, let's get on to some questions and some dialogues. I think when it comes to BigCos, we know there's no faking it, right? There's the light's on you, you're producing value, or it's very apparent. And I think, within the audience here today, people are really interested in real-world impact. How are you moving the needle? What are you doing? So I'll start with, what is something that you and your organization have done that is groundbreaking through the use of technology that really moved the needle? And we'd love to hear a little bit about what you did and how you did it and the impact that it had. So I'm going to go with OSU alum. And so we'll start with you on this question and work our way down. But with the industry diversity, it'd be great to hear the different perspectives.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we're an industry cloud platform company for life sciences. So anytime we think about technology innovation, we have to be responsible about it as well, because our customers really focus on regulations and compliance. So we take very pragmatic approach, meaning that we just don't jump into the technology and just start finding solutions and building new products on it. We take our time, evaluate, and then when is the right time to do it. In fact, our company, just a few days ago, we released a statement called Veeva AI, meaning that we're introducing new products on our platform for our customers to use and bring their own large language models on their own. We want to make it so easy where, if you're using our applications and if you want to bring your workflow that triggers AI, we want to give that opportunity to do that. So it's coming by end of the year. So that's one of the groundbreaking new opportunities or functionality that we are releasing it out. In terms of internally how we're doing it, there are a lot of things that we need to get under the hood correctly, meaning the application that we have, the data that we have, we need to get all those ducks in order before we start using AI. So we did that last year, and this year we're really all focused on AI going forward, even for our internal applications as well.
One of the things you mentioned too, and maybe we'll get to it in the next question where we'll talk a little bit about responsibility, but I love the theme of democratization, opening up the architecture to accelerate the journey and to be able to enable people to co-create within your platform. So, but that creates some challenges, and it'd be great to hear your perspective when we get to our next question on how you manage it.
Well, I think so path breaking for us has been actually making the technology really usable and useful for some of our business users on the ground, right? For a very long time, technology was like this fiefdom of research, and technology is really, benefiting from it. But the real value is where we have people in the warehouses, people in our nuclear manufacturing facility, actually using it for their day-to-day efficiencies, right? So one example is nuclear manufacturing is one of our key areas. So we make radiopharmaceuticals, which is obviously, as you can imagine, a fairly a precision process that you have to take a molecule and then you have to make it radioactive, and it's like melting ice, so it has to be distributed really fast before its half-life is reached, and it has to be injected into the patient. So end-to-end, an extremely complicated and highly precision process, right? So we have put AI into the hands of the clinicians that are working in the manufacturing facility. So if you think of them all gloved up, obviously, they're in a radioactive environment, so they have to be completely protected, head to toe, everything is covered. And then a simple example is, think about if they have a question about this graph that they're analyzing for that particular batch, that is this batch right, or do I need to discard it? And in the past, they would have had to take off their gloves, go find a computer, type in a question, get an answer, which is already hundreds of pages of text somewhere where that answer is, it could be found, or find an expert, which again, someone, and this is middle of the night, if you know, all of nuclear manufacturing happens in the night because in the morning they start injecting, right? So a very long process. So in the past, they would have had to wait, and we would have missed maybe the number of batches that we could produce. Today, we've given them a natural language audio interface where they can actually ask the question. There's a retrieval-based system that pulls an answer, shares it with them, and if they don't find that answer useful, it can make a call for them to that without having to, re-sterilize themselves. So really small if you look at the technology, but the impact and the use of it is
I love where you went on that. Simple, intuitive, user-friendly, at the point of consumption, even in a difficult situation and a difficult environment. That's a fantastic story. You've had 2 good ones. Now it's up to you.
I mean, it's really hard to follow any of this. I think the one thing that we're really proud of over the last couple of years from an innovation standpoint is we set out on a journey to produce our products with more sustainable materials. A lot of people might not realize, but about 75% of a tire the materials come from the petrochemical industry. And so we were looking at how can we look at renewable, recycled, or bio-based materials to produce our products and at a lower carbon footprint, as well as reusing materials. And we started that journey over about in 2020. We've been able to demonstrate producing a tire at the same or even better performance that you see on your vehicles today. That's 90% sustainable materials. And that's great to do in demonstration, but now we are deploying that technology and increasing the sustainable content of our products. So today in the US and in China, because we are a global company, you can purchase a tire that has 70% sustainable material content. So that is we're really proud of. I think as we talk about how we got there and how we are developing tires differently, the majority of our tire development, yes, some of it from the core materials is done in the lab, but we also use a lot of simulation technology to simulate tire performance so that we don't have to build a tire, test a tire. So that saves on materials in the development process, as well as, of course, saving quite a bit of time.
It's interesting, too. You mentioned being able to certify sustainability and ensure it. That implies unified data thread from inputs all the way to outputs.
Yes.
There's a lot of work on data. Do you mind just sharing kind of what you've done to be able to get to that point?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole of sustainable content certification, but there is a process where you need to, it's called ISCC, you need to certify that your product has sustainable content. And to your point, building the data connectivity all the way from the beginning to the end of the manufacturing process is really important. And we were able to do that with some of our existing manufacturing systems, and then, of course, adding new fields and adding new reporting. And you have to do that plant by plant. You have to do that even with your suppliers. So yes, another really key point that digital is is required for everything. And has to really go hand in hand.
It's interesting, too. I think it's important that when you talk about these great innovations, and I'm sure you all have it, underlying it is the hard, difficult work of getting your data in order. And in some cases, it can even be a bit dirty. My end-to-end data stream story was dairy farms dressed like this deep in the output of the dairy cattle. So, it can literally get pretty dirty.
You gotta go to the source, right?
Let's do this. With great power comes great responsibility, and you all are under tremendous pressure to help achieve organizational results, but you also are accountable for making sure that you do it in a way that reflects the values of you, your team, and your company. So Anagha, maybe we'll start with you, and then you guys got to figure out which one goes next. You mind just sharing how you're making that balance between faster and responsible and how you're thinking about that?
For sure. And it's very important because if you don't bake responsibility into your strategy right from the beginning, catching up on it later it's almost like a losing battle, right? Once you've gone down that slippery slope, it's very difficult to come back. So I think we started with a core set of responsible AI principles early on as we were defining our strategy. And we've chosen to take a risk-based approach, so we are able to innovate fast while also being responsible. We don't want use cases that have inherently really low risk to be treated the same as an use case that is probably going to impact a patient with a clinical decision. It's not the same amount of risk. So we've put together a risk assessment framework that every use case goes through and then sort of gets categorized on the levels of risk and the type of risk. So the typical risk dimensions of whether it's a risk to a patient or a user, life. Is it a risk just due to data? Is it a risk for privacy, or is there a risk to the reputation of the company? So there are several dimensions that factor into this risk assessment framework. But I think we've managed to strike that balance today, and I think we're still learning because it's the ones that are to the extreme left or the extreme right probably are the easier ones because you know what you have to do. But then there are so many like the bell curve that fall well. Is this, does this go left? Does this go right? How do you treat it? And that's where all the fun happens.
You said that in just a couple of minutes and you laid it out so well. And all I can think of is I see you in the initial discussions with the legal department and understand that that's a very difficult thing to get an organization to a risk-based culture like that.
I think, and as we built that framework out, obviously, it wasn't just the technology team. That wouldn't work. So we had legal, privacy, information security, HR, enterprise architecture, the AI COE, and our steering committee, like literally from representatives from our CXOs that were, a part of the whole process that we've built out. So it's definitely been a team effort.
It takes a village, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You started to go down this path. Why don't we go to you?
Well, speed is an essence for our company, so we definitely never want to slow that down. But let's break it down. The buzzword of responsible. What does responsible means? I think it means different for different industries. For regulations, data privacy is very critical. For Goodyear manufacturing, is safety, right? For another company, it could be sustainability. Whatever that is, I think we really want to understand what is the principles that we are trying to make sure that we want to be in a building block around it, right? And then based on that, evaluate what you're trying to innovate. And as you build new software products or new devices, make sure that the responsibility principles that we have identified, we have a good metrics to achieve that. We don't want to go beyond that. And then have a loop of communication, involve, as you mentioned, the legal team, among others, or expertise who needs to chime in throughout the whole process of device manufacturing or software development lifecycle, so that you're continuously evaluating as you go faster. You're also keeping in mind on those responsibility principles in mind, right? So that you're not navigating out of it, and making sure that you're going fast, but also the principles are being achieved as well.
Excellent. Yeah.
I think a lot of similar themes. You hit on it to say, as we think about responsibility at Goodyear, we are providing a regulated safety product. So you can imagine there's a lot of discussion around, ensuring that we're meeting the promise of the product out on the road. But in similar manner, we really look at the levels of risk versus the data and the knowledge that we have. I think oftentimes when we're in that front end of the innovation pipeline, we've really kind of put some guardrails around what can we do, what can we test quickly, how can we do that by looking at either testing things in the lab, testing things on a closed circuit, for example, and really making sure before anything goes on the road, we build the confidence that we have, but then at the same time, we can iterate quickly because we've de-risked the situation enough.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about a culture of innovation. It's one thing, you all represent groups that are innovative and drive innovation, but to really be innovative, it's about a culture. It's about a culture of risk-taking, a culture of creativity that goes out and penetrates beyond your own organization. So the next question, let's talk a little bit about what are you doing in your organization to create that culture of innovation, to infect the organization with that desire to do new things, to break old models, and to move ahead. Erin, I'm going to start with you. You're at this interesting intersection of sciences that still give me headaches from my undergrad, and you went way on beyond that, to technology, to data science, and you're at the intersection of all those. So we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the first thing from creating a culture of innovation is going to sound really simple, and you might even ask, why do you need to do that? But we are in a large, I'll say I'm in a large company. We've been in business for more than 125 years. And so the number one thing I like to do with my team is make sure that I very clearly give them permission to innovate beyond how they're thinking today. And so I actually remember just last week I called the team together and I said, I can't exactly talk about the project, but I said, okay, you're looking at the project like this. You have permission to look at it much more broadly, and that is my expectation. So I think that is one thing, and then I think a second thing as we come to this intersection of Gen AI with development and how we do our business is leading by example. And so as simple as using AI tools in my everyday to make my job easier shows my team that they're supposed to be doing that too. So if I, for example, I had to write some talking points based off of a 5-page document, and I threw that right into Copilot, and it was amazing, or whichever tool that you use. And then I tell my team that's what I did. Like, I'm like, hey, I did this in 1 minute, and I kind of brag about it so they also know, leading by example, hey, I am expected to use these tools as well. Here's what went well, here's what didn't go well. So those are a couple items, leading by example and making sure you give people the permission also to experiment, and then come back and make sure that everyone shares the data and the information, whether it went well or whether it didn't go so well. So there's a couple. I could go on and on. So
I love it.
I'd like
You have
to
all
hear
the
from
approaches,
the others.
but I think the takeaway is it starts with leadership.
Yeah.
Excellent. You want to go next, Pinal?
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. The culture is built around the leadership that is running the company, but also the people are part of the company as well. What's, to me, making sure everyone being on the same page on what you're trying to achieve. Where do we want to take the company to, and how does this new technology helps us take that forward, and what are the risks that we're willing to take. We have to take a risk as a company. If you're not taking a risk, then you're going to be set backwards. It's okay to fail fast and learn fast, right? You have that iterative environment culture where you're empowering your managers and your employees to say that it's okay to go explore new ideas, new technologies, and it's okay to fail. Learn from it, right? And then that culture of giving that empowerment is very important in my view.
You can talk the talk or walk the walk. I think it's very hard. It's very easy to say, as an organization and as a leader that we are tolerant of risk. It's another thing when something goes wrong to stand up and to be able to say, we're going to handle this in a way that helps us grow. Do you have just a quick example where, because you mentioned that, where you were able to do that just to kind of set the tone for the audience?
Not an example per se, but I think we are an innovative company, for life sciences. So we started Veeva with one product, and now we have 35 plus product. And it's not like all 35 products become successful from the get-go. I think it was a lot about trial and error. We listened to customers, what they want. We evaluated internally where we want to take the life sciences company to go. And then we said, okay, let's try this out. And then see if this is something that will help our customers and life sciences take forward. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. But let's continue that innovation engine to see how far we can go. And that's how we did. And we started with one product, then became 5, 10, 15, 20. Now we have 35
So it just became part of your deployment cycle. It's something that you did every day.
Yeah.
Small group meetings, these failures were happening and people are learning.
Correct.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe similar themes, of course, but so a couple of things have come together for us to really reap benefits of this culture of innovation, right? Top down from a leadership level, there needs to be a will to let this happen. And then bottoms up, there needs to be skill. And so when both of them come together, I think that's that perfect storm.
Absolutely.
And similar to what you said, right? And in Cardinal, we joke that it's okay to fail if you do 3 things. Fail forward, fail fast, and fail cheap. So we follow those 3 themes as we experiment and roll things out.
Fail forward, fail fast, fail cheap. That's a fantastic soundbite.
One thing I just want to add to this, because we have this conversation with my team a lot, and it's not always easy when maybe you're doing more, I'll call it more development work, a little more incremental. You oftentimes have those couple people on your team that I like to call free radicals. Maybe it's the chemistry part of me, but we all know we have those people on our team who are a bit out there bringing in some really crazy ideas on a regular basis. And it's really easy for them not to find a place at the company and not to fit in. And it's really important, though, if you want to do innovation, that you figure out how do you nurture in a safe and productive way the free radicals who are really going to push the boundaries, and you decide how many of those you can kind of handle. And you might manage them and lead that team a little bit differently than the people who are doing the incremental innovation, the closer to market, on a regular basis deploying new products. So just something to think about who your free radicals are and how you might interact with them differently so that you can leverage the best out of all the different, I'll call them personalities on the team.
So you're making chemistry fun for us today.
Yes,
so you get the next question for doing that. Free radicals earns you the next. But we're talking innovation. We're talking culture of innovation. Looking forward, looking at what's critical for your company, what's critical for your industry, and looking at the evolution of technology, which is, I think we can all say is at a pace that is unparalleled in our careers. What are those innovations that are going to shape the future of your company and your organization that you're most excited about? And since you started with making chemistry fun, we'll give you the first question.
Yeah, I think we might all have pretty similar, potentially, we'll see, similar answers here, and I've already touched on one of them. I think number one for a company like ours, and maybe I'm a bit biased because this is really my focus area, is how do we come up with those next generation materials that aren't solely based on petrochemicals? How do we also reuse materials in our products today, either back into that same product or back into other products? I think that allows not only for conservation of natural resources, but it also starts to really look at supply chain resiliency, where you have several options that you can You can get, I like to say, you can get your source of carbon from a lot of different places. So you can get it from oil, or you can get it from recycling products that we've already made, or you can get it from bio-based solutions. So I think that type of technology is going to be important going forward. And on top of that, it's not only that innovation space, but also how you innovate in that space using the latest, greatest tools, as we get into AI, generative AI from even a materials discovery standpoint or an implementation standpoint.
It's exciting as you're talking about the challenges and the direction. You're also alluding to the tools that are evolving from AI, and some of those are optimization problems within there that would have been very difficult to do several years ago.
Or back to your comment on this, just the speed. I like to say, how would we design our company if we started it today versus 125 years ago? And I think, we have a lot of different tools that we can go use and implement and really increase that pace of innovation.
That could be an entirely different panel. How would we redesign a company today based on the technology we have? Anagha, would you?
Good panel to sit in the audience and listen
Yeah.
to. I think a little bit of Erin has rubbed off on me, so I'm going to talk about two trends that I personally think are going to change our path in the future. One is, of course, metamaterials, like you said. So that, think about materials that have perfect absorption, or like being able to solve, especially in the healthcare field, using some of those materials that you rightly said are being experimented with in silico, and then actually being able to stabilize and create them, put them in the hands of users. That's Horizon 3. I'm like really excited about that trend for sure. But in healthcare itself, I think there is immense potential today for us to really, if we have an opportunity to eradicate some of the diseases that we have been fighting for a really, really, really long time. And so if we are in an AI plus world today, so AI plus biology, AI plus material, that's the trend.
It's interesting too, you mention it and we really haven't talked on it, but underlying what each of you do is a noble mission.
Yeah.
Cars safer on the road, healthcare more accessible, eradicate disease. I think sometimes, we talk about the technology. It's good to hear that brought forward as well.
Yeah, that's our focus from an innovation standpoint, is that how can we make clinical trials simplified? How can we expedite it? Because our primary customers are life science industries. Their main components is to get the drug to the patient's hand as early as possible to cure the diseases, right? So, we have a goal to streamline the clinical trial process from a digitalization perspective. It would be great, it would be fantastic even if we just reduce the clinical trials by 25% in terms of speed up. Right now it takes 10 years for a drug from initial inception to getting that to produce in the hands of the patients. That's 10 years. So even if you can speed up, let's say reduce 3 years, it's significant. So we're constantly thinking, in terms of what are some of the new products that we can serve our customers to increase that the efficiency of clinical trials. And we use technologies, whether it's a SaaS-based application that we want to serve to speed that up. Now with AI, I feel like it's going to be a lot more faster and with ethical in mind. But that's our focus, is that get the medicines to the patient's hand as fast as possible, and Veeva wants to be part of that. So.
The interesting part about, especially clinical trials and what we've struggled with in the past is, for example, diabetes, which is one of the most prevalent chronic conditions. And I come from India. It is like almost an epidemic there, but all of the clinical trials have actually been run on the Western. And because diabetes has an impact of the food that you consume, a lot of environmental factors, it isn't a one-to-one. So if we are able to take those clinical trials and then run them across different patient populations, you'll actually be able to improve the efficacy of the medications that are, discovered and deployed across different patient populations.
Yeah, that's our goal. We're trying to standardize for the life sciences industry, not just for one particular customer. If all pharmaceuticals companies are speaking the same language with the clinical research organization and clinical trials, I mean, it just speeds it up, right? I think we're going to get there.
What I'm hearing from all of you is a restlessness with the status quo and an excitement around new capabilities that can help you envision a new future, and a new future that drives benefit to individuals and to society. So it's great to hear. So here's a question I have to ask. I'm going to try and get in this question for sure, and hopefully get one more. But yeah, we're in Ohio. We're at the Ohio Tech Summit. And rooted in this question is I lived in Boston for 7 years, and I used to tell everyone that secretly I know deep down you all really want to work in Ohio and live in Ohio. I was right, but one of the things we would be remiss at the Tech Summit. For those of you, you all work at large companies, they're diversified industries, and you live here, you work here. I'd love to hear your perspective on what is the big innovation opportunity for Ohio? How does Ohio continue to become the state that our children want to work in, that draws talent, and that allows us to leverage our diversity across industries to do really powerful and exciting things? So I will want to start with you, Erin.
Okay.
You gave me a nervous look, so I pounced.
I know, I saw that. Man, no. I think, well, first I'll say, I think there's probably multiple technologies and industries that Ohio can own and drive forward. I think we're big enough and talented enough to do that. I will have to, of course, put a plug around an industry that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that's really exciting and happening in Northeast Ohio. Many people, you may or may not know that Akron in the past has been known as the rubber capital of the world. And today, I think there's, several hundred polymer-related companies in Northeast Ohio. And we have, several great university ecosystems up there as well, connected, of course, into Columbus. And, we have this capability that we can foster and help accelerate the next generation of materials, especially polymer-based materials. And polymers are almost in everything, in a ton of medical applications and devices. They're essential, as well as in several other growing industries, and of course in automotive. And so I think an area where Ohio is really poised to win is to look at those capabilities, augment them. I like, as you say, the AI plus, augment them with the latest technologies, attract new companies into the area to continue to that growth around the polymer sector. Many of you, we actually had an opportunity to talk about this at a previous Ohio X event where the Akron area was named one of the state innovation hubs for polymers, and also named one of the federal tech hubs for sustainable polymers. And so we are geared up with, I would call it, some seed funding to really grow and accelerate that industry based on the history there, the capability, the companies, and the education ecosystem. So if anyone wants to come join us or ask me more questions about it and get involved, you don't have to be a polymer chemist to do that. There's a lot of industries that we serve and a lot of new tech that's going to be needed. So thanks for the commercial.
I was going to say, you've already proven, though, you can make chemistry fun. So even if you're not, you're probably the person to talk to. And I would say, too, let that sink in. It's been written about in multiple sources. Akron, legitimate claim, polymer capital of the world. So I'm glad to hear you elaborate on that.
Thank you.
Anagha.
So I'm going to call on, so when I came here 10 years ago, the one thing that stood out for me was how nice people in Ohio are. And so I think I would want to build on that Midwest nice and say, this is where we would be able to really find the right use for AI in the physical world. So my call would be, let's talk about AI plus the physical applications, and let's use our Midwest nice to do it the right way. That could be our...
I love it. I love it. I think there's something to be said to that too. Around, I think that Midwest nice, and it's probably a longer discussion, longer day, there's an obligation to make sure that that voice is entering into the AI ethics discussion in helping shape and define it in combination with other voices. So you put it much more eloquently than that, but what a thing to leave here with today. Thank you. No?
And she's right, because if I've seen in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of Silicon Valley mindset have come into Ohio, right? Because they miss the Midwest, they miss Ohio. I'm one of them, and I went to New York and came back. So, and Ohio is called the Silicon heartland of technology for a reason. We have grown a lot. I think the engine has started already in terms of manufacturing of chip devices. Intel is coming. There's a lot of national defense companies, Anduril Industries, and Dayton is focused on national defense and technology side. And then also the state of Ohio itself, the government and the nonprofit organization, they're investing heavily to recruit and build the talent on technology, like Jobs Ohio, Innovate Ohio. And then the last thing is that we have a really good diverse set of universities. I mean, the Ohio State University is one of the biggest universities in the country. And we have a great engineering program. And my company itself, we hire graduates from the Ohio University because we want to retain the talent and we want to grow them. And hopefully down the road, they have the startup mentality where they come back and give back to the community. So all in all, I think cost of living is good, and I think not recently, but compared to the West Coast, but I've seen more and more people are coming back to Columbus or the Ohio to really see the Ohio thrive in technology, in AI as well.
It's funny, as we round out the discussion, you heard it here, Silicon Heartland, polymer capital of the world, and Midwest nice. I think it's I appreciate you sharing it, but it's an opportunity for all of us in this room to build that future in a way that's good for this state. I'm going to round up and hope we get grace. We've got about 3 minutes, not really, we got less. But just to close it out, and then we'll give you guys an opportunity for a round of applause, but what guidance would you give? You're all working at large companies. You've knocked down barriers. You know where the pitfalls are. You have calloused hands and bruised knees. What is the one piece of advice that you would give people in this room as they're looking at their innovation journey? I'm going to start with Anagha.
So I think one thing that I would like to leave everyone with is change is coming, it's inevitable, and it's going to come fast. Become comfortable with that change, like embrace it. That's the one way to get through it.
You want to go next, Pinal?
Yeah, absolutely. The change, be ready to accept the change, be ready to use the change to innovate. And then give empowerment for people to take risk and learn from it.
Yeah. I think maybe two things, if that's okay. I think number one, make sure that you always have that customer, stakeholder, user in front of you, because that's who you're designing for. And number two, persistence. You might need more persistence than you ever thought you would need. But kind of keep that what you're trying to do in front of you, and be persistent to make that change happen.
So we're at the end of the time. I want to thank you. I think it's been beyond the insights. It's been very inspiring. I leave here, and I'm sure many in the audience do, with a renewed sense of what we can do for our companies, but also what power and what opportunity we have to really innovate across this state. So with that said, thank you very much.
Thank you.